Good afternoon. I call to order this regular meeting of the San Bernardino International Airport Authority this Wednesday, June 27th. I'd like to ask the clerk to call roll call.
Certainly. From the City of Loma Linda?
Here. Or should I say
From the City of Highland? Here. And please note that Mayor McAllen is in the audience. From the City of San Bernardino?
Carrie Davis.
Virginia Marquez.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I apologize for the delay. And do we have any closed session public comment slips?
No, we do not.
All right, thank you. We will recess for closed session. All right, we're reconvening our open session, and at this time we will ask Mr. Huber to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if we could have a report out of closed session.
There was no reportable action taken in closed session. However, for the record, it should be noted that as to items in closed sessions, item A, B, and C, Councilmember Lilburn recused herself as to those items. And as to item E, as an echo, Councilmember Charette recused himself as to that item.
Thank you. Any items to be added or deleted?
Yes, sir. On your dais, you will see one added item, item number 19, and you will also see a revised item number 1, clarifying, some of the conflicts attachments there.
Thank you. And conflicts of interest?
Yes, sir. I have one on 8 and one of the, well, actually 2 of the contractors on 13, which is Myro's firm, Ludwig Engineering, and then the Myro firm.
Thank you. And I have a conflict on item number 8 and item 13, Ludwig also. And so if we could pull those 2 from the approval of the contracts,
Yes.
when we get to that item, and then item 8, if we could continue that.
Certainly.
Do we need a motion to continue?
No.
All right. So item number 8 will not be included in the consent calendar approval.
And Mayor, you won't have to pull Myro, will you? Because I'm.
The
Yeah,
challenge
you
is,
don't have a
We
quorum.
still wouldn't have a quorum.
Yeah.
We're at a
you
bare
wouldn't have
minimum
to,
today.
okay.
so we have
Got
no
it.
choice but to extend
And that's
those for
okay.
next
We
meeting.
can carry it forward.
Okay.
All right, so those 2 items will be carried to the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
All right, so.
And excuse me, we do
Yes.
need a vote for adding item number 19.
Thank you.
Move
Thank you.
approval.
We have motion,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, item 19 is added to the agenda. Thank you. So with that.
I'll move the consent calendar without item number 8.
We have a second? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any opposed? Seeing none, the consent calendar is now approved.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I jumped ahead of your report.
That's okay. We'll come back to it.
The reports
Sorry.
speak for themselves.
All right, so
Sorry.
we'll go back to item number 2 for the Executive Director's report.
Well, on that note, I am the fiscal year-end highlights. We have that for your review. Our very talented clerk of the board team has I think, a much more exciting presentation on the open agenda that capture a lot of those details. I will just comment on the marketing activities. Our in-house marketing pro, Ms. Casares, put in a forecast and a recap on some of the marketing activities in there. The forthcoming fiscal year pretty well projects out continuation of the activities we've been doing in the past between Luxaver and SBD. I will just comment that last month we did have a good showing at our eBase conference for the business aviation community. and had very good discussions and follow-through with our JetX partnership and our Abu Dhabi Airports partnership at that event. We do expect, particularly on the JetX side, Amber is working hand-in-hand with their team in some new promotional campaigns for Luxair, and we'll be bringing that forward here in the new year. So that concludes my remarks.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll then move to our next item, which is
12. 12.
Should be number 12, I think, isn't it?
12.
Item 12.
item 12. Thank you. Appreciate the help from the commissioners. Item number 12 is to consider and adopt the San Bernardino International Airport budget for the fiscal year 2018-19. Mr. Garay.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 12, the proposed budget for fiscal year 2018 and 19 is being presented to the Commission for review and approval. Recommended actions are to approve the said budget, and we start on page 103 for a little bit of a background on this. We've developed the budget for the next fiscal year, and we place some specific focus on generating revenue and including operational lease revenues for the year. And we also include some continued investment policies. Going on to page 105, we start off with the first pie chart for the budget. This pie chart describes the airport authority's sources of funds for the fiscal year. There are 5 sources indicated on this pie chart: the FBO, the general fund, property management, capital projects, and debt service. Going on to the next page, page 106. For the same year, 2018-19, we have a pie chart indicating and reflecting uses of the cash sources. We have 5 funds also: general fund, property management fund, capital projects fund, debt service, and FBO. Associated with each of these slices of the pie are the amounts to be used for the year. This is a very general overview of all the funds in the SBIAA budget. Going on to page 107. We have divided the general fund, which is a big fund, under the uses category. These are 12 sub-funds under the general fund. And as you can see, we have a description of each of the slices of the pie, along with the associated cost or uses of each of those slices. Does anyone have any question on this chart? It has a lot of information on it. If none, we can move on to page 109, which shows the budget structure. For the airport authority, this is the same as it was in the 17-18 fiscal year. On top, you'll see 3 boxes that show the sources of funds: the intergovernmental revenues, leases revenue, and other sources, bond proceeds, and CMB loan proceeds. Below that row, you'll see the funds, the 5 general funds one more time: property management, fixed-based operator fund, general fund, debt service, and capital project funds. It's just another format to show the relationship between the sources and uses and the names of the funds. Going on to page 110, and what I will do from this point on with regard to these worksheets showing the actual expenditures for this fiscal year, 17-18, as compared to the 18-19 budget being proposed. We start off with the general fund, and as you can see, it involves quite a bit of revenues and expenditures, but let me highlight a few of the revenue items for you. We are showing down on account number, and you'll see the account starting with 4, the digit 4, 41300, intergovernmental revenue. We are projecting a budget amount of $5.5 million. Right below that, you'll see 41400, transfers from property management fund as another major revenue source of $5.65 million. Going on to the expenditures down below, you'll see the series starting with the number 5. As before, the salaries and wages, which includes the benefits, is the big ticket expense item at $2.763 million. Following that, we will see on page 111, series of the expenditures that we have categorized for the different expenses that we'll have in the airport for the year. Page 112, the following page, continues with the expenditures. Let me note on account number 50433, ARF Services, it's coming in at a projected $766,000. And 50440 is the vehicle replacement account. Same, we're still on page 112, and that's coming in at $105,000. Continuing on to page 113 under the general fund, all combined. This finalizes the entire general fund, all combined worksheet. A major expense pointed out here is 50560, professional services other, at $170,000. And when we add up all these numbers on the 2018-19 budget under the general fund, all combined, we get a total of $18,599,000. And that is compared to the total revenues on page 110 of $19 million, we get a overall revenue over expenditures of $494,644. Now, you'll see at the bottom of page one.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Question for you, going back to page 110.
Yes.
The account number 42201, the receivable from IVDA, that's $6 million.
Yes.
What does that represent?
I'm sorry, what does that represent?
What does that represent?
That is the accumulation of airport revenues, and that consists of an accumulation of an accrual receivable from 16-17 of $415,739 and an accrual of $5.5 million in this fiscal year. They total to $6,080,000, which
Okay.
is the amount here.
Thank
So
you.
what we've done is accrued the receivable over those 2 years and reflect those in here. Now, if you go to item number 53370 on page 113, you'll see that same number. It's called transfers out, airport operations, identical number, and so it zeroes out that receivable. And this number will be transferred over to a balance sheet account, some cash account that we'll have ready for the money, if it's received according to the budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the general fund combined? Now, following on page 114, you'll see the detail of the general fund, and I won't go through this unless someone has a question, but what happens on each of these separate funds is that these numbers under the general fund, under these sub-accounts, will roll up to the worksheet that I just went over. And you'll see administrative expenses, marketing, airfield operations, control tower on page 119. On page 120, you'll see airfield maintenance, still under the general fund. 121, you'll see facility maintenance. 122 shows terminal parking operations. 123 shows vehicle equipment and maintenance. 124, International Airport Arrival Facility Ops and Maintenance. 125 is security. And again, these formats are showing revenue, if applicable, and the associated expenses for that particular fund. Going on to page 126 is the information on network services. 127 is ARF, which leaves us on page 128, and this is the property management fund all combined. This again represents the roll-up of all the sub-funds in the property management category. I'll go through this real fast. Lease revenues, account number 41,700, which is the top line. We're projecting $6.179 million for the 18-19 fiscal year. It's the only source of revenue under this account. And we have the associated expenses below that. You will see on the next page, 129. I'm sorry, going back to 128, you'll see that the expenditures over revenue equal $1.919 million in the red. However, if we go to page 129, that amount is covered by cash on hand that's available of $2 million, and leaving us with a cash balance of about $400,000. Going on to page 130, we go into the detail or sub-funds of property management. Again, these items or these sub-funds roll up into the page we were just on page 129, providing more detail and broken down into property management general on 130, property management GA planned, which are the GA hangars, which are complete, and I believe fully leased. And you'll see the proposed or the projected 2018-19 budget numbers for each one of these centers or funds. 132, page 132 shows the cell tower. 133 shows the building 302, which is county fire. Page 134, ramp, parking, and vacant land. A lot of this is the lease revenue from leasing property to park cars. Page 135 is the restaurant down the street, the associated revenues and the expenses to that. Building 680 is the fire station. On page 137, building 695 is the midfield hangar. Page 138, building 56 behind us. 139 is the building 730 maintenance building, newly completed. Building 747, Stater Brothers, on page 140. Page 141 reflects the activity that we project for the building 759 offices. Page 142 is the building 763 hangar complex. We are projecting quite a bit of revenue from this building as reflected in the 2018-19 budget column. Page 143 is building 795 midfield hangar. 144, the sheriff's hangar, which is complete. And we're showing the lease revenue from that projected at $82,200. Page 145 is the freight building. 146, building 339. Page 147 is building 341. Page 148 is building 333. And we have a rental car trailer reflected on page 149. A little bit of income coming in there. Page 150, building 675. And that completes the sub-funds for the the property management. All these numbers again rolled up into that first worksheet that we talked about, or that I commented on page. Let's see. I believe 128. Yes, all these sub-funds roll up into page 128. Does anybody have any questions on the property management section of the budget?
Nope.
Okay, then let's proceed on to Next item on page 151. It's the Capital Projects Fund. And on here, we have the sources of cash revenue projected for the year in the last column at $9.4 million. And then the expenses associated with that, including a bunch of capital projects expenditures. This spans pages 151 through 153. Net income, the line on page 153 shows a negative $3.1 million. However, we have about $3.5 million of cash on hand, which will cover that excess of expenditures over cash sources, leaving us with a cash balance on hand of about $400,000. Any questions on the Capital Projects Fund, financial information, budget information? Okay. Proceeding on to page 154, this is the Debt Service Fund. We expect to pay $570,000 during the next fiscal year. This original loan date was back on June 1st, 2015, and the original loan amount was $3.9 million. And we are paying that down. We have a couple more payments to go before it's paid off. And these are yearly or annual payments. Any questions on the Debt Service Fund? Okay, moving on to page 155. We have a combined worksheet here for the FBO and Hangar 674. We rolled up these two sub-funds, and we'll show the revenues and expenditures for each on pages 155 through 157. You'll see on page 157 the net income or net revenues over expenditures at $332,000. This will add to the cash on hand beginning of $700,000 to end out projected to end out the fiscal year at a little over $1 million. Going to the sub-fund, we'll go to Hangar 674 first. Not much to it. We've got some lease revenue and some expenditures associated with that revenue. Going on to page 159, this is the fixed base operator budget projection for the next fiscal year. And you will see a number of sources of revenue. The significant item in this one are the fuel sales that are projected to be some $7.5 million for the fiscal year 18-19. Now that's gross sales. Against that, we have cost of fuel, and that's projected to be about $6.7 million, leaving us with a gross profit of about $3.3. Against this gross revenue, we are projecting a number of expenditures listed on page 159, 160, and 161. You'll see on page 161, we end the year with a net income or projected net income of $117,000. And that is a combined net income not only for fuel sales, but other revenue from rental income and transfers from property management fund and capital projects, transfers from SBIAA Inc. Lease revenue and some concierge services and some other income. So overall, on the FBO alone, it will have a projected net income of $117,000. Are anybody have any questions on the FBO or Hangar 674?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on to page 162, we have additional reporting formats. This shows or reflects the budget only. It doesn't show, like it did in the previous worksheets, the actual expenditures to date for this fiscal year, 17-18. So we provide a complete set, and then same information as I've already discussed. Moving on to page 208. We have provided a copy of the airport fee schedule for the next fiscal year. These include elements such as the annual permitting fee, 6-month permitting, airport uses, filming, and so forth. It goes into pretty good detail, going even down to the detail of aircraft parking fees for the next fiscal year. So this carries us through page 210. Does anybody have any questions on the fees, the schedule of the fees for all these activities?
Are there any changes?
I believe there were, but I don't have that information. Mark, do you have that information?
Changes to the fees?
Very minor changes. One of them was a clarification on what the fuel flowage fee is. So there was some old language that was previously removed, but the cost has not changed. It remains at 10 cents as the fuel flowage fee. The other difference is in the operating permits for entities that do not have a leasehold on the airport. So if an outside contractor or service provider came onto the airport, there is a percentage of gross revenue for a commercial operating permit on the airport. And that new fee is 7% of their gross revenue, which is fairly customary in the industry.
That would cover third-party ground handlers, for instance. We are getting those nowadays. And so it's appropriate to put that construct in our fee schedule now that the activity is coming our way.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any more questions on this? Okay, on page 211, we've provided a couple of pages of budget projections broken down between Luxor and the airport. This is for your review, and we've broken down to a BFT, Luxor, and this is on page 211.
So these are marketing-related expenses, which are identical to what's in the informational item. It's the forecast for the year that Amber prepared.
Which is already incorporated in the budget.
Yes.
So a total of approximately 220,000.
Yes, approximately.
And how did that compare with last year?
Yeah, we were just under 210 last year, so it's a small increase.
Thank you.
And that concludes my budget report, unless you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the thoroughness of that overview. Any questions from commissioners? Do we have a motion to approve the budget?
I'll move the budget.
Have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any opposed? Seeing none, the 2018-19 is approved. Thank you very much. Appreciate staff's work on putting this together for us.
You're welcome.
Next is item number 13, to approve certain consulting contracts for fiscal year 2018 and 19, and as previously noted, items number O and B will be excluded from the approval process for this meeting based on conflicts by myself and Councilmember Charette. We have a motion to move the balance.
I'll move the balance.
Any
I'll second.
questions? Oh, thank you. Any opposition?
I guess I do have a general question. Are they pretty much similar to last year?
They are.
Okay.
They are.
Seeing no objections, item number 13 is approved. Next is item number 14, approve the standard form of San Bernardino Fest 2018 performer and sponsor agreement, and approve the 2018 air show entertainment contract with Patriots Jet Team. Catherine Pritchett.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. As you may recall, in January of this past year, staff requested and received authorization from the Commission to begin the formal planning process of SBD Fest 2018. This year's event is scheduled for November 3rd and 4th, located in the same area on the northeast area of the airport property. Authorization of this item will be twofold. First, it will authorize execution of an agreement with the Patriots Jet Team to be our aerial headliner, along with the Air Force A-10 for this year's air show. It will also authorize staff to utilize the two attached agreements for the rest of the formal sponsor, partner, and promotional contracts that we have coming for the rest of the year. Happy to answer any air show questions if you have them.
Will Toyota be a sponsor again this year, or?
We're working with Toyota now. Yes.
Very good. Councilmember,
Do you happen to have, now that we're, 6 months past the old air show, a solid number as to what was the out-of-pocket cost for the airport when it's all said, after we got all the sponsors and all the revenue and we paid all of our bills, what was the final amount that we ended up having to pay for it?
We can provide a final report to you.
Okay.
With the
I'm just
exact
curious
numbers.
if, because some other board members have asked me specifically, I know we have sponsors and such, but it would be nice to get a firm understanding as to what is the ultimate cost that we're incurring as a result of that.
It's actually in your budget document, so we can probably pull that
In the
real
200
quick.
pages?
What's that?
Is it in the 200 pages that we just went over?
No, but I think I can grab it for you pretty quickly here, because I saw this coming in on the,
I remember we talked about a $50,000 to $70,000 range, but I wasn't sure whether.
yeah,
it was
no, special event revenue was 297,660.
Okay.
That's sponsorships and obviously, ticket sales and all of that. And then if you see SBD Fest expenses, 306.
What are you looking at?
So on 110, I'm sorry, on the bait stamp, it's 110. And so SBD Fest 2017, expense of 306,941. And then below that, you're looking at a projected 350 for this year in expense. And so each year, we're actually closing the gap on that. I think, I've got to say, you know better than I, Kat, because you're talking to these sponsors every day, but the interest is still pretty high this year so far?
This is the first year in the 3 years past that we've actually been receiving sponsors proactively. A lot of folks are coming, a lot of local businesses are contacting us, wanting to come on board this year. So the word is out there. Our name is familiar in the air show community and the local community, so it gives us a lot of hope that our sponsorship numbers will be significantly higher this year.
And it's also the first year we're an award-winning air show, too, right?
That's right.
From last year. So if you recall, we got the Pinnacle Award for the plane stage.
so it looks like a cost of around 10,000.
That's what we're projecting, and Kat is doing a great job with the sponsor side of it. So as we get closer, we'll certainly announce those sponsors as they sign on, but we've got to give them time.
Very good, thank you.
Of course.
On page 242, excuse me, not page 44. Page 234, the fifth paragraph down talks about U.S. Air Force A-10 Thunderbolt tool. Is that new this year? Did we have that last year?
No, that is actually the Air Force assigned asset. This is the first time we've received an asset of this nature from one of the military branches. The A-10 is performing both days, and it is a new aerial performance in addition, yes.
And that's what you have in your flyer, right?
Yes, it is.
So it's also called a Warthog. That's the nickname.
And as we become more familiar with the air show community, they are more willing to assign assets of this nature to us. We're working with all of the local branches on not only aerial assets, but also ground assets to be used as static displays.
So if you
Any-
haven't noticed.
Any opportunities for the electeds to have a ride in that?
We'll start a
We've
lottery.
never heard of such a thing, but
No?
yeah, we got a lot of volunteers so far, but
Can you parachute from that?
An emergency.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? All right, so we have a motion to approve the agreement? Thank you. We have a
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any opposed? Seeing none, item number 14 is approved. Thank you for your report. Next is item number 15, approve the form of a lease agreement with Federal Express Corporation for hangar number 795. Mr. Gibbs,
Thank you, Mayor.
very excited to hear about this update.
We're excited to talk about it. So this item would approve a 10-year lease agreement with the FedEx Corporation. The official name is Federal Express Corporation, but we like to call them FedEx, as commonly referred to. This would be utilizing one of the existing hangars we commonly refer to as hangar 795, and is a 57,000 square foot hangar. Would include 2 ancillary buildings, and it would include some additional ramp as well. The overhead that you have there, the purple shows the portion of ramp that comes with the lease, and the orange depicts areas that would be additional ramp space that would be leased for this occupancy. The project includes quite an extensive build-out. Some of those improvements are the airports, the long-term improvements that will stay with the building, and FedEx is building out a conveyor system inside the hangar to support their sorting of air cargo packages. The revenue would be $299,000 each year, and that is the revenue for the facilities. So the hangar, the 2 structures, and the additional ramp areas. We're excited to have them. FedEx is the 5th largest airline in the world. They've got over 400,000 employees and 680 aircraft in their fleet. They're also the largest air cargo company in the world. The principal lease terms, of course, include the buildings as well as the ramp areas. Again, it's a 10-year lease, which includes a 5-year extension at their option. There are CPI adjustments, and there's also a fair market value adjustment at the end of the initial term of the lease. And we're excited to have them here, and we're seeking your approval for a new tenant on the airport.
Thank you. And that would include some additional ramp fees and landing fees and fuel sales?
That's right. So what's before you now are the actual terms of the lease for your consideration, but there are additional benefits to the airport, and that includes, direct jobs on the airport. They're talking about hiring a certain amount of direct employees. It's also additional flight activities. They're still in the process of finalizing their schedule. They know for sure that they'll have daily flights throughout the year. But again, those plans aren't finalized at this point, should they increase beyond a daily flight.
And it would also increase the labor base?
I'm sorry?
The labor pool would increase also?
It will, yes. So they'll be hiring direct jobs, at least 60, to staff this during the routine around the year. It's likely that they will ramp up during the 4th quarter, which is usually the busiest time for cargo companies, and air cargo companies as well.
So together with UPS over the last couple of years, you've seen a dramatic increase in the amount of volume, both for freight and the traffic, the aircraft traffic.
We absolutely have. And you may have noticed in the budget numbers that there was a significant increase in the amount of fuel revenues, and that has a lot to do with the increased commercial-sized aircraft that UPS is operating. FedEx will also be contributing to that number throughout the years, and what's actually depicted in the budget, I would consider conservative. So it's definitely beneficial in terms of fuel volumes.
Well, thank you. I know that puts a smile on all of the commissioners to be able to approve this, and I think this does reflect the hard work that you have done to bring this to fruition, and hopefully FedEx will be placing their signature on this agreement very soon. So expectation is for completion of the upgrades to the hangar in October, and so
You will see
Thank
an interesting correlation, though, with some expense categories in your budget as well. The FBO had a fuel truck purchase in there, and Mr. Harris has a whole lot of work underway and on the horizon, too. So, but it's a team effort. FedEx is spending money as well. So.
On that note, I know we went over it, but I'll bring it up. I noticed that there was a $1.2 million expense to the radar. Can you give us an update on the radar? So we are talking about a lot of increased activity with FedEx and other folks flying.
Yeah, so interestingly, I was talking to the FAA earlier this week on that very matter,
Okay.
and we continue to work with the FAA for a solution on that. What the FAA has done is updated the entire radar displays throughout the country, and we're working with them to be assigned one of those units through what's called a reimbursable agreement. That has not been finalized. They're continuing to work through the FAA's process of gaining those approvals, and those approvals go all the way up to headquarters. So it's not what you would call a fast process, but we continue to work through that. We're shooting for the fourth quarter of this year or the first quarter of 2019. So they're in the process of, again, working that through their system. For approvals.
Is that related just to our airport or nationwide?
So we're a little bit of an anomaly, as we're accustomed to, is kind of part of our DNA. And our tower is what's called a non-federal, non-contract tower, and there's not a lot of those in the country. What that means is we have the contract for the tower rather than the FAA. So there's towers that the FAA operates, and then there's towers that the FAA allows an airport to contract through. We are neither of those. So because of that, it takes additional processing for things like this to get approved through the FAA's approval process.
And once we get their approval and we get the equipment, do you have any idea as to how much time it takes to actually install it?
Not a long time. Yeah, there's a few hurdles to get through on the designing of the network that feeds into their system, but it's not a long time to install it.
Thank you.
does it require additional training on the controller?
It does, yeah.
Is that included in the 1.2 million?
You know, we're very fortunate our controllers, most of them are retired FAA. So they're a skilled bunch. Most of them are accustomed to working with radar, but yeah, it would not be a long ramp-up period for them to start using it.
And we did allocate some additional funds for some staff supplements for that, as well as additional activity with the tower contract itself.
Well, thank you very much. We certainly are looking forward to the continued growth of the airport, and this will really, I think, help to generate additional demand and competition. So keep up the good work, and thank you very much.
Well, I do want to point out that Mark has been well-trained by Amber, because he worked really hard to make sure those were the exact colors, branded
I was just going to
colors
ask that.
of FedEx. So he does listen to you.
I was just going to ask that, as well as I'd be pleased to move this forward and approve it.
Thank you.
A second.
We have a second. Any opposed? Better not be.
I can't imagine anybody opposing this.
All right. Thank you very much. So item number 15 is approved, and I believe those colors match your blouse. Yeah, the orange and the purple, and so. Did you have a dream last night about what to wear today?
We're hoping to get license fees for uniforms now.
Item number 16, approve the form of a lease agreement with San Bernardino County Fire District for portions of Building 680, the airport fire station. Mr. Gibbs?
Thank you, Mayor. This item would be for a lease agreement for the airport's fire station and a service agreement as well with the San Bernardino County Fire District. And The building was designed to accommodate what are called Aircraft Rescue and Firefighters, ARF, as is the acronym. And this is one of the services that the Federal Aviation Administration requires for commercial airports. And we've, of course, worked with previously the city of San Bernardino for these services. And when that contract changed over to county control, our contract went with it. And this is a natural progression to work with County Fire District for new services. And it's also, I might note, an interesting change for us, and a good one at that. For many years, we've provided ARF services when needed, so we would have to pick up the phone and call them should we have a flight coming in that needed those services. The difference with this is now we will have dedicated staff on the airport 24 hours per day to accommodate hours around the clock, and we're excited for that change. We worked very closely with the fire district to find an agreement that we were both amenable to. The cost of this agreement is $766,159 per year. And some of the principal lease terms include the fire station at $1 a year. The fire district would use our ARF equipment, so we own the fire trucks, and it's very specialized equipment, and they would maintain that as well as provide utilities to the building for their occupancy. And that concludes this, and staff recommends approval of this agreement.
The projected budget for revenues is based on the service that would be provided to the Forest Service.
That's one of the customers.
And also
Boeing.
Boeing.
Boeing is another potential on that, and, you know, it's new territory. What I will say about the county fire team is that they really hopped on this to help promote the service, market the service, and as we've talked about at our prior meetings, on the other side, they're also the primary operator of the regional ARF training center, which is now, in a few more days, the only one on the west coast of the U.S. Operating. So we're treating it as a new venture, but they've been very supportive to grow the service, you know, expand the revenue base, and increase the quality of service with their full-time presence here. So I do want to thank the county for their support.
Did Fire have any comments you'd like to make?
Good evening. My name's Dan Wooders, Battalion Chief with County Fire here in the city of San Bernardino. First, I want to say I'm a little disappointed that I don't see our logo up there. But got their representation.
We'll work on co-branding soon enough.
Yeah.
So.
But on behalf of County Fire, I just want to say thank you, and we look forward to a long-standing partnership with the Airport Authority. If approved tonight, this agreement will allow County Fire to provide more consistent services to the airport on a 24-hour basis. As it stands now, we essentially provide on-call services. So we have to downstaff one of our engines, one or more engines that typically serve the city of San Bernardino. And so that really it impacts our ability to serve that area that we're required to provide services for. So if this agreement is approved, not only will it be a benefit to the airport, but it'll also benefit the city of San Bernardino, because now we have dedicated services here at the airport. So once again, I just want to thank you, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you.
They do get to maintain it too, which we
Yeah.
appreciate.
Are you having to get more equipment, or are you just using our equipment for these fire services?
No, we'll be using the equipment that is owned by the airport.
And what is it that you guys will be doing to help market the ARF Training Center?
Currently, we provide instructors to the Regional Airport Authority. So through the Airport Authority, they do their own marketing.
Okay,
and-
so it's going to be up to us, to a certain extent, to try to bring you clients, so to speak.
And
Yeah.
that undoubtedly will be a separate agreement with the ARF JPA. County Fire is a member, a primary member of that, but we
Okay.
have to go to the broader JPA board there.
Okay, all right, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? We have a motion? to
I'll
approve.
move the item.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any opposed? None. Item number 16 is approved. Item number 17 is to consider and discuss the report on strategic planning initiatives. Mr. Burrows?
So this is the shortest staff report that I have, I think, ever written, but it's one I'm excited to put before you. Our clerk of the board team, I want to talk about them a little bit. You see them dealing with board operations, this building. They also manage the IT, AV systems for, our campus. They are also trained in GIS. And this year, and as we've done the prior years, we've challenged them to kind of put a special spin and message on our strategic plan results for the year. So I'm going to hand this presentation over to Jennifer and have them walk you through how we did last year.
Hello, good afternoon, Commissioners. On the screen, you will see our 2017 SBIAA story map. Esri provides a number of mapping services that we use, and this is what's called a story map, and this is a cascade version of that. We as an agency view this story map as a communication tool between us and the public. And at this time, I'd like to introduce staff analyst Jennifer Rodriguez, who will present the first portion of this presentation.
Good afternoon, Commission members. I'm really excited about this. So, to begin, comprised of the cities of Colton, Highland, Loma Linda, San Bernardino, and the County of San Bernardino, the San Bernardino International Airport Authority, known as SBIAA, was formed in 1992 to oversee the development and reuse of the aviation portions of the former Northern Air Force Base, now known as the San Bernardino International Airport. Our strategic initiatives. On December 16, 2015, the SBIAA Commission adopted a strategic plan that focuses on the airport, Lexivir SPD, airport operations, and business development and educational alliances. And these are all featured here. SPD International Airport. The airport is certificated by the FAA under Part 139 as a public commercial service airport. The airport supports the air cargo, maintenance, repair, and overhaul, MRO, general aviation, corporate aviation, and air passenger services industry. And these are some pictures that were taken at our airport. As well, we have the website on here, so if you click, it will take you to it. Oh, it went too fast. Okay, continuing, our full-scale emergency exercise, it occurred February 28 of this year. Our airport is a Class 1 airport, which serves large scheduled passenger air operations. Every 3 years, the FAA requires Class 1 airports to simulate a real-time emergency on the airport to test the airport's emergency plan in coordination with emergency response agencies. And here's some pictures from our emergency exercise. Abu Dhabi Airports. On February 27 of this year, a MOU was signed with Abu Dhabi Airports, linking Al Bateen Executive Airport with SBD. And featured here is Executive Director Michael and Mr. Ovi Popescu. This is very exciting, our annual aircraft operations. In 2016, our annual operations was 47,780. In 2017, it increased to 57,639, marking a 21% increase in our annual operations. And our economic impact. As of 2017, the IBDA has created 11,575 jobs, generating over $2.3 billion in economic output. As of 2017, the SBD Airport is the third largest employer with 1,583 direct jobs. Lexivir SBD welcomes corporate customers and general aviation pilots to enjoy one of the country's best FBOs. Featured here are pictures of our beautiful FBO. JetX and Lexiver SBD partnership. On February 7th, 2018, JetX Flight Support announced the launch of its first branded private terminal at Lexiver SBD. Lexiver SBD and JetX has entered into a strategic partnership to provide global customers a first-class experience into Southern California. And our total yearly ramp activity. In 2016, total yearly ramp activity was 2,926. In 2017, it increased to 4,746, marking an incredible 62% increase in yearly ramp activities.
And as far as airport infrastructure goes, through grant funding with the FAA, EDA, and in partnership with IVDA, SBIAA is able to complete airport infrastructure improvements. This chart that you see above, that I can't control, here we go, it displays a number of ongoing and complete projects that were in the year of 2017. And then the photos that you see are before and after imagery of our various construction projects that were completed in 2017. Just doesn't want to cooperate. And then our operations and business development, as you see on the screen, those are a number of our MROs located at the airport, and a couple of photos of those. And specifically regarding air cargo is a quickly growing market segment here at SBD. In 2017, UPS hired 200 employees to work at its refurbished air cargo facility inside Hangar 695 on our airport. So that was very exciting news from last year. And SBD has a number of educational partnerships, namely with that of San Bernardino Regional Emergency Training Center, which is now the only facility in Western United States that provides airport firefighter training as required by the FAA. And then, as you know, last year we had our third annual SBD Fest in October. And here are some highlights from that.
And who won?
It was the firefighters, right?
He left.
And most notably, last year, SBD received the Gold Pinnacle Award for Air Show Innovation presented by the International Council of Air Shows for our innovative concert stage. As
Could you
Mike
go
had
back to
mentioned.
those wrestlers? Who
Oh, these guys?
are
Those
the
pretty cool.
wrestlers that are?
Yeah, they're Mexican wrestlers.
That's actually our
Is that
IT manager,
Mike and
Mark Dennis.
Is it-
And then lastly, SBD has been utilized for a number of commercial, still, and feature film productions, as shown in this chart. And for any additional information, you can go ahead and visit our website, SBIAA.org. And if you guys have any comments or would like us to include other items in next year's report, please feel free to contact us or Mike. And thank you.
Very good, thank you.
So the link will be live on the website, and in the weekly update, I'll make sure that all of our member agencies and your staffs will have that access. Please give us your feedback. They edit and update these things pretty quick now. So.
I think this is a unique opportunity to actually remarket ourselves. So maybe once it goes live, we may want to spread the word to all of our contacts and let them know, saying, you know, here's a little bit more information about our airport, because it does a pretty good job of encapsulating really what we've done, where we're going, and what we're doing, which is it gives us a lot more data, and especially to the community. I think it would be great for the folks in our community to understand and get the details that they might necessarily get from reading the paper or even talking to us, because there's a lot of data in there. So
Well, and we want
need
it to
figure out a way.
be user-friendly for you as commissioners as well, so people ask for information. This is only the way you push that through the story map on the website, and it's all questions.
What was the estimate for next year? I haven't seen any shots in it on the turkey trot. We were too busy running. There was a festival event. Now I get it.
Well, very good. Thank you for that. We really appreciate the hard work of the staff that helped to put that together, and look forward to additional reports in the future. Any other comments, councilmembers or commissioners? Item number 18, review the status of the action plan for the San Bernardino International Airport Authority through June 30th, 2013. Mr. Burrows.
Well, this will be the longest report of the night. No, thank you for your support again with the budget moving forward, and your guidance and direction to both myself and the team. We will be updating this action plan for the forthcoming 6 months, and that should be on your next meeting. But again, thank you very much for your ardent support through this busy year, and appreciate your confidence going into next fiscal. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next and final item, the added item number 19, award a construction contract to Performance Electric for the electrical service upgrade Building 795 project in an amount not to exceed $371,808 and appropriate a construction contingency of $37,180.
I'll go ahead and move the item. It
We
does
have a
speak for
motion.
itself.
Second?
I just had a quick question.
Second?
I know we did similar work on the other hangar. I'm just curious, is it comparable as far as cost on electrical upgrades?
The repairs in this hangar is considerably higher for the electrical system because the prior hangar, 695, already had its electrical system upgraded.
I see.
This one, we're dealing with equipment from all the way from the 40s up to now.
Okay. Thank you.
So that equipment from the 40s was still operational to a certain extent?
You have just a minute? These are plugs that we took out of the ceiling of the hangar.
I thought you were kidding when you said you took them out.
We can sell them for as.
Right?
Well, what's interesting about this one, you know what a polarized plug is?
Yeah.
You plug something in the wall that's one wider than the other. That started from about this. Well, this one does have a polarized plug, but no ground. So if anything happened with this plug, you touch it, it's that. But the interesting part is they used the wire from the 1940s to hook it in. So this is the type of item we're dealing with.
Are you putting that in your ceiling?
And this plug is a little different because it has horizontal movement. Again, no ground, but this one already had some shorts where the plug is ground. So this is what we're dealing with out there. That's how we should be doing it.
Right?
We happen to have one next door, so it's convenient.
Yeah.
I'll move the item.
Well, I think it was
Yeah.
moved. You'd like to second it?
I'll second.
That's fine.
All right, thank you. Yeah, any opposition? Item number 19 is approved. So that concludes our agenda items. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to speak? Don't see any. Anybody from staff want to make any comments? Well, thank you very much. We really do appreciate all the hard work that's gone into improving the performance of our airport, and want to thank also the commissioners for attending today. I know that it was conflicting activity going on at Lake Arrowhead with the city-county conference, and so I appreciate the dedication and commitment of the commissioners who decided to make sure that this meeting was had a quorum. So.
And that is, believe me, echoed from staff loudly, so thank you. We do like having budgets. It does help, move things along.
And hopefully the next meeting won't be 3 hours.
Indeed.
All right, if no other comments, this meeting is adjourned until Wednesday, July 25th. Thank you, drive safe.